This week's Q&A is about disposable pans and electrical devices, and the question is, do you have to tevel them? If you have disposable aluminum pans or electrical devices, do they have to have tevilah before you use them? So the simple rule is that utensils that are made of metal or glass, and they're used either in the preparation of food or the consumption of food, have to have tevilah before when a Jewish person buys them from someone who's not Jewish. And first glance, that should seem to include both of these. Aluminum pans and electrical devices that are made of metal seemingly should be shoo-ins, so obviously need to have tevilah. But not everybody agrees with that simple understanding. Let's do one at a time. Let's first talk about disposable pans. So Rabbi Yashiv said, like I just said, they're made of metal. You use them for cooking. They have direct contact with the food. You need to tevel them. That's what he said. Now, the opposite extreme was Dayan Weiss and Minchas Yitzchak says that as relates to Hilchos Tumah, something which is disposable doesn't have the status of a kli. It's not considered a kli, and that has a meaningful status for Tumah, and disposables don't have that. So he says if for Tumah doesn't have it's not considered a kli, then the same is true for Tevillas Keilim, and it's not considered a kli. They do not have to have tevilah. A third opinion is said over several of the Talmidim of Rav Moshe Feinstein say over that he said that if you use it once, you don't have to tevel it. If you use it more than once, then you would have to tevel it even before the first time. If you plan to use it more than once, then you have to tevel it even before the first time. So about the tevilah of disposables there's three different opinions. Now let's move to electronic devices. Now the manufacturers who make these devices will all tell you that if you're going to submerge it in water, like what you have to do to tevel them, it'll ruin the device. So some poskim say that in itself is a reason why you shouldn't have to tevel it. The fact that it will be ruined is in itself a reason why you have to be tevel. And it could take me a minute to explain why that should be true. Now, it starts as follows. The Ramah says that if you have something which is owned by a Jewish person and someone who's not Jewish, that partners in the same utensil, does not require tevilah. Now, the Shach says, you might think that the reason why it doesn't need tevilah is because it's excused from tevilah. That's what you would read. If you just read it, you would think that's what it means. But Shach says that's not what it means. Not that it really does need tevilah because a Jewish person owns it. The problem is that since the non-Jewish person also has an ownership in it, as soon as you tevel it and you take it out of the mikveh, it needs to be teveled again because you're still using something that had a non-Jewish ownership, and now you have a partial ownership, so it needs tevilah again each time. So basically, it's impossible to do tevilah to, because as soon as you do tevilah, you don't need to do tevilah again. You don't gain anything by putting it into the mikveh. So that explains why the Shach is explaining why you don't have to do tevilah. Well, okay, so I can't. I'm sorry, I have to. I can't. It's physically impossible to do tevilah. But why am I allowed to use it? It didn't have tevilah yet. The din is until you tevel a kli, you're not allowed to use it. The answer is that the mitzvah to tevel something is a mitzvah d'oraisa, that you have to tevel kelim. The isser, the prohibition against using something before you tevel it, that's an isser d'rabbanan. So why did Chacham make such an isser d'rabbanan? They made that because they want to encourage people to tevel their dishes, and they say the way we encourage you is by saying you can't use it until you tevel it, and that will obviously encourage people to tevel because they realize they can't use it till then. But if it's impossible to do the tevilah, if like in this case, it's impossible to do the tevilah because as soon as you put it into mikveh, it needs to be teveled again. You're never going to be successful in doing that. So then the Chacham don't impose on you and say you're not allowed to use your kli because it has no sense in this case. Saying you can't use it is a way of forcing me to do tevilah, but I can't do tevilah even if I try to. So therefore, in those cases, the Chacham do not punish you and stop you from using it, and they allow you to use it even though it didn't have the tevilah. Well, that same logic people apply to the case of electrical appliances. If you have an electrical appliance which will get ruined by tevilah, not all, but many will, if they get ruined by teveling it, then it's the same thing as something that was owned by someone who's Jewish and non-Jewish. Physically, you cannot perform tevilah on this thing. So the item that's owned as a partnership, it's physical. You can't do tevilah because it won't be effective. The electrical appliance you can't do tevilah because if you do it, you won't have any appliance left afterwards. So the result is the same. That tevilah it's not possible before you. You're not possible to do tevilah, and therefore this position says that since it's not possible, mitzvah d'oraisa is not possible, then the issur d'rabbanan against using it doesn't apply, and therefore you could use it even though it did not have its tevilah.